Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Industry of Aviation and Future Trends. So before we proceed, I would like to thank our gold sponsors, Kuwait Airways and the Traveler Global. I thank everyone participating today in the midst of a hectic and a busy schedule in order to make this event an absolute success. We will be featuring many areas within the industry of aviation and have a look into the industry situation in the pandemic world compared to the pre-pandemic world, inclusive of opportunities and the rebound process in the post-pandemic world with two distinguished professionals on board, brought to you by Aero Club of International Airline and Aviation College. So before we kickstart our discussion, I would like to divert your attention towards our commercial that would be played shortly.
Together we all began our journey in aviation education. Most of us
today we represent nothing but IAAC as one family.
With the time and tide in such a short period, interactions and socializing with friends.
From just batchmates, we became best friends and made good friends from other batches too.
being in the aviation industry doesn't mean work hard. It's all about working smart.
Live a few years like most boys, so you can live the rest of your life like most can't.
There is no lift to success. You always have to take the stairs because grades don't measure intelligence and age doesn't define maturity.
When everything feels like an uphill struggle, just think of the view from the top, because the best view is the view from the sky.
3 months from today, you will thank yourself, but all the credits comes to nowhere other than the IAC.
The point of being alive is to do something remarkable. To do something remarkable, you all had a wise start. The wise start was starting with IAAC.
As IAACians, we don't stop when we are tired. We stop when we are done.
We didn't only learn about theory. We had so much practicals which brought us close to perfection, and now we are close to make our ambitions to come true thanks to IAAC.
Together we love.
Together we train,
Together we study.
together we cry.
All this for nothing but to make memories and cherish them years from now. We are IAC.
Now I cordially invite Mr. Aslam Shafi, Operations Manager of International Airline and Aviation College, to address the audience.
IAC is registered and closely monitored by a government body, which you all know, Territory and Vocational Education Commission, that is called the TVEC. As a young college, we have gained an award for the best airline training college in Sri Lanka. That was last year in 2020. Also, we are partnered with a few other companies, such as for piloting, we are with the US Aviation College in Texas, US, and Sabre WorldSpan for GDS systems, that is for training in ticketing and reservations for our ticketing students. Also, we are connected with IBT College, Toronto, Canada. They are, of course, partnered. They are partnered with us for our students to continue their studies further. We have our business school as well. That is the BCM, British College of Management for Business Administration, HR and Marketing. It's under accreditation of AB UK. It's a pathway for MBA. You can continue with level 4, 5, 6. After 6, it's a direct pathway for MBA. Also, we conduct banking as well under BCM. That is for the beginners who are interested in banking sector, or when you want to enter banking. Yes, it's a pathway. Once again, I thank our guest speakers, Mr. Rehan Wanyappa, also Dr. Sumit Silva, for their valuable time, sparing their valuable time with us for our students. and they will be sharing a knowledge about aviation, present and the future. Thank you so much to all our participants, and stay safe in this pandemic situation. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Mr. Aslam, for the brief presentation. So before we go ahead with the discussion, I would like to take a moment to introduce both of our distinguished guest speakers for today. First, we have Mr. Rehan Waniappa, who is a lawyer by profession and currently serving as the Director for Air Transport and Economic Regulation, Civil Aviation Authority of Sri Lanka. A humble and an outstanding personality who has served the industry of aviation for a long period of time. And also he's been my lecturer for a certain period of time back then at CITC, and we managed to learn a lot as a team about aviation within a short span of time. And he is undoubtedly a proven asset to the industry of aviation. And in the other hand, we have another humble and an outstanding personality, Dr. Sumit De Silva. Dr. Sumit is currently serving as the head of marketing and corporate communications at Airport Aviation Services Limited, BIA. He's also a passionate development professional, business and marketing consultant, lecturer, trainer, and speaker. And undoubtedly, he too is a proven asset for the industry of aviation. And with such professional intellectuals on board, I can make myself comfortable to reveal the fact that our great industry of aviation is in safe hands. So thank you so much, my dear guest speakers, for contributing your valuable time in the midst of a busy schedule with pure intention of giving an optimistic insight about the industry towards the public. Now, I would like to cordially invite Mr. Rehan Waniappa to kickstart the session, Industry of Aviation and Future Trends. Yes, sir, you may go ahead.
Thank you very much, Azri. Can you hear me? Am I busy?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Right. Okay. So Azri was my student many years ago. He was the most passionate and enthusiastic student ever I have seen in aviation. So it's very good to have you as a moderator. And Sumit, good evening to you, and good evening to all our viewers and participants joining from everywhere in Sri Lanka and maybe even overseas. So today I will just speak about the aviation industry and a few future trends, and then take a few questions later on. So I have a presentation that I have prepared. I will share it. Let me see if I can. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
It's possible, sir. Yes, I can see it.
Right. So basically, I'll start off with my presentation. And as you know, Sri Lanka has a very, very ancient history of aviation, starting from King Ravana many years ago. We speak fondly of this particular personality. And actually, the CA has been doing some research on to see whether there's evidence of this very, very famous king in Sri Lanka and how aviation has been used at that time by him. So everyone remembers 1903. This is where the Wright brothers flew their Wright Flyer. And then we came to the turboprops. Then we move on to the big jets like the Airbus A380, which unfortunately will be leaving the skies very soon, because most airlines are not interested in operating this anymore. Then we have the drones, which are very famous now, and then it has become a part of our industry, doing some very, very good service around the world, especially in humanitarian aspects, for example, in Rwanda. Now we have come to the age of commercial space travel. Most of you know that Richard Branson did a flight last weekend, and he almost went to the edge of space. So commercial air travel is going to be very popular in the next couple of years. In fact, I remember meeting one of their design directors about 2 years ago at the Dubai Air Show, and he told me how much it's going to cost. Apparently, he said it'll cost about $250,000 for a space ride, and then that you have to lose weight for 6 months. And so it was very interesting for me. Aviation actually is a funny business. I know that all of you are from the aviation industry. Some maybe not, some may be outside. Just to give you a background of what the aviation industry is like, it's regulated by a lot of government bilateral agreements. Many, they are called air services agreements. It forms a part of the aviation industry. Setting up an airline overseas is difficult. It's difficult. Most states need at least 51% of home ownership. Their own country's ownership is required. For example, Sri Lanka will say that you have to have 51% ownership by at either the government of Sri Lanka or nationals of Sri Lanka to set up an airline. Aviation industry is the world's safest industry, believe it or not. On average, only about 500 people lose their lives every year. On Sri Lankan roads alone, we lose more than 3,000 people a year. There are a lot of audits which aviation players have to undergo, like the ICAO audits, the IATA, IOSA audits, and so on. So it's safety conscious, and we place a huge emphasis on safety. So because of that, we have become the safest mode of transport. Also, air crashes make a lot of noise, a lot of headlines, whether it's an air crash in Kazakhstan or Indonesia. Even if it's a small plane that crashes with about 30, 40 people, it'll always make some noise. Especially CNN, BBC, they will always report on these air crashes. So it's an industry that is always in the eye of the public. Also, the industry gets very, very, very easily affected by geopolitical events and most recently pandemics like the COVID-19. Geopolitical events, for example, when the Easter attacks took place in Sri Lanka, it impacted our industry a lot. When September 11th happened in 2001, it impacted the industry. When the financial crisis was happening in 2008, 2009, again, it impacted the industry. So a lot of these political events happening around the world affect aviation a lot. Of course, there are economic benefits from having an aviation industry. We did a study in 2017, 2018 to assess the value of aviation to our economy. So it's roughly about 530 billion Sri Lankan rupees that is added by the aviation industry to the Sri Lankan economy. 530 billion LKR, that's about 5% of GDP in that particular year. It provides about 11,055 direct employment opportunities. It adds 4 times as much direct output to the value chain, the Sri Lankan value chain, and gives about 14.3 billion LKR worth of value added services to the economy. And then also it has taxation. The taxation benefit in that particular year was about 4.6 billion LKR to the treasury. So it's a very important industry. Also, it's a mechanism by which the tourism industry gets their visitors down, or the tourists down to the country, because about 99% of passengers come via air to Sri Lanka. Very few percentage come via sea. So it's an important industry for an island like Sri Lanka, and aviation will always have a importance and a place in the Sri Lankan landscape. ICAO did a study a few years ago, and the result was that there are economic benefits of civil aviation. It has a ripple effect on the economy. For example, if you add 100 jobs in air transport, 100 jobs in aviation, it will create another 610 jobs elsewhere in the economy. Okay, so that's interesting. And also, if you spend $100 on air transport, it will contribute $325 worth of benefits into the economy. So again, aviation is a very important industry for the Sri Lankan economy. If you take the Sri Lankan aviation industry, we have one big carrier, Sri Lankan Airlines, which is the international passenger and cargo operator. Then we have FITSAIR. It was earlier known as Expo Air. Now it's called FITSAIR. It does international cargo at the moment, but they also have passenger license to operate passenger services on their ATR aircraft. Then we have two big major airports, Bandaranaike International Airport and Mattala International Airport. So these are the two main gateways. Before COVID-19, we had on average about 35 to 39 airlines operating to Sri Lanka. Of course, the numbers now are very less, but we hope to increase it over the coming months and years. If you take the aviation industry...
So excuse me, sir. Sorry for the interruption. Your slides aren't visible, actually. I just dropped your message in the chat box.
I can't see it, is it? Huh?
Yeah, now it's fine. So now it's okay. Now it's back to normal, actually.
Okay, you didn't see all the while?
At the moment, it's fine, but there are some interruptions at in the middle of the program, but now it's fine, sir, under control.
Did you see the ones at the top, beginning?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
No, only the first page was Rehan, it was on, and then slides PowerPoint was not moving. Now it's okay, I think. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Now, in the aviation industry, you have three major players, actually industry bodies. One is, of course, a governmental body, the International Civil Aviation Organization, which Sri Lanka is a part of from 1948. Then you have IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, and you have ACI, which is the Airports Council International, which is the industry body for all the airports in the world. So all these three entities have been doing a lot of work during COVID-19. We have benefited by their webinars, their lectures, and their material, their research. During COVID-19, they played a huge role. Since we have a lot of new players, new participants in the audience, there are two major aircraft manufacturers, that is Airbus and Boeing. Then there is a newcomer, which is Boom Aviation. Boom Aviation is planning on building a supersonic aircraft, and they hope to deliver around 2030. If some of you may remember, the Concorde was the supersonic aircraft, which was discontinued in 2003 after a major accident in France. But it was uneconomical, so that's why it was discontinued. But this Boom Aviation is planning on making a comeback for the supersonic age, where you can fly maybe in about 4 hours. The Concorde used to fly from London to New York. So this is great news. So if you take Airbus and Boeing, they both have their military side. Then Airbus has helicopters. Boeing has a lot of presence in the military aspect. You have other manufacturers also, like Bombardier, then Embraer, then you have Avic. You have quite a lot of then Mitsubishi. They're all new players or have been there for some time, but they make different types of aircraft which are smaller than Airbus and Boeing. Then you have in the aviation industry two very important concepts, especially how the passenger traffic is handled, called the hub and spoke and the point-to-point. Now, the hub and spoke system is important for the big network carriers like Emirates, Qatar Airways, Oman Air, Singapore Airlines. They connect via their main hub. If you take Emirates, it's through their Dubai hub, Qatar through their Qatar, Doha hub, Singapore Airlines through their Singapore hub. So it's a cumulative collection of passengers through the hub. Very simply, a hub is like in transport. In Sri Lanka, you get the central transport stop, the main transport center in Peta. So if you want to take a bus to, let's say, Mathara, you go there and take a bus. This is, of course, this is before the highway. You go to the central main transport stop and then you take a bus and go. So it's similar. The hub and spoke system is very similar. But the disadvantage they have is during COVID-19. Because for the hub and spoke system to be successful, all these spokes, these little lines which are coming out of the hub, they have to be active. Then only the hub and spoke system can work efficiently. So it's a challenge during COVID-19 because most of the states have closed their borders. Most of the states don't permit airlines to come and pick passengers, or it's restricted. So the hub and spoke system is not very successful at the moment. On the other hand, you have the point-to-point service, which is, for example, an airline like AirAsia, point-to-point. AirAsia or Fly Dubai, they will do point-to-point. They do a little bit of hubbing, but most of their business is point-to-point, which just like what's there in the diagram. They can be more successful because they can choose the points that are open at the moment, especially during COVID-19, and operate their services.
You're muted. You're muted, Rehan.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yeah, you're right. Yes.
Did you hear me earlier?
Yes.
Oh,
Just a bit,
Yes,
1
sir.
minute. You were muted.
okay, right. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Passenger.
Yeah. So the world passenger traffic just plummeted, just came down, as you can see. Can you see the full screen, or is it just Azri?
Yes, it can be seen. So it's actually in your slides. You can see the
You
slides.
can, it's visible, right?
It's possible.
Right. Okay.
Yes,
So the
yes.
world passenger traffic has really plummeted. It has come down in 2020. It has, as you can see, it's just like a great fall. It is unlike any other era. It has just come down. This is the world traffic. So from 1945 to 2020, it's plotted here. So it's the greatest fall of all time. If you take even Asia Pacific, the passenger numbers, it has gone down. If you take April, March, the April has been the lowest. But in Asia Pacific, the numbers are a little high because of the domestic market. What is in orange or pink is the domestic market. If you take India and China, the domestic market has been doing quite well. So it has helped them survive. The top line is the 2019 total. So you can see the disparity. If you take this is another graph which shows that the passenger revenues have really come down, but the cargo revenues have held up, almost like the previous years. So cargo has been doing quite well, especially because some of you may be aware that there were the converted aircraft, the passenger aircraft converted into cargo freighters, and also carriage of cargo on seats. Carriage of cargo on seats in the passenger cabin was very popular during the last 1 year. So that also helped airlines to survive in some sort. It was difficult, but they managed somehow. If you take the Sri Lankan situation, also the passenger numbers have come down. So we are at about, for 2020, we have handled about 2.4 million passengers from the usual almost 10 million, 9.9, 10.8, 9.9 was 2019. If you can see the graph, 2019 was when the Easter tax took place. So there was a dip, but we had recovered by December, almost recovered. But again, it fell down in 2020 because of COVID-19. Cargo also has come down in 2019 for Sri Lanka. Then if you take look at the aircraft movements, definitely it has come down because of the downturn. So when aircraft movements come down, obviously it's a loss for the economy, because landing, parking, Sumit's company will lose money because they will not get revenue. Okay, let's look at the new normal. Quickly, I will just go through. The in-flight experience has changed because the hygiene has become one of the most important things. The service standards, the catering, all have changed. The in-flight entertainment, some don't provide in-flight entertainment because you cannot touch the screens. So the things have really changed because of COVID-19. Even the F&B services, the seating, hygienic in-flight entertainment, as I mentioned, has to be changed. Okay, the meals are, some airlines serve it in boxes. You don't have cutlery, and you don't have you have all disposable stuff. So it's not as comfortable as it used to be. These are some of the pictures of some airlines providing services, meal services. Okay, then the hygienic system, where some airlines have self-disinfecting seats, then air shield isolation, ultraviolet cabin cleaning. All these new technologies have been introduced by airlines. This is something which I saw, new type of passenger seats with different angles to avoid contamination. So the in-flight experience has completely changed. Also, Wi-Fi on board has become more popular, and passengers are encouraged to bring their own devices, because, as I mentioned, the in-flight entertainment is not popular at the moment, or not propagated at the moment. I did a study about maybe about 8-9 months ago about whether passengers will be willing to travel again. And it was interesting because about 50%, close to 50% of the passengers are willing to travel again within the next 2 months, provided the pandemic comes to a stable situation. So unfortunately, the pandemic has not come to a stable situation, because it has been up and down, a lot of complications, and so it's very indecisive, meaning it changes from time to time. So that's why passengers are a little reluctant to fly at the moment. But definitely, once things smoothen out, if the vaccinations are rolled out, definitely I think passenger traffic will start again. We have seen that happening in Sri Lanka also, because the numbers have started to rise from what was in 2020. Okay, let's look at some future trends which I foresee. Something which IATA says is that the e-commerce business has moved tremendously in the last 90 days. Sorry, the last year. For example, the e-commerce business in the US moved 10 years. It showed the growth of 10 years in a 90-day period, in a 3-month period. So e-commerce is the thing for the future. You would have seen in Sri Lanka also, a lot of people order online, food, groceries, then whatever other material they want online. So similarly, globally, e-commerce business is going to play a major part in airline business. Also, what is reported is that the postal service has come down. The postal parcel services has come down at the same time. What IATA reports is that about 80% of e-commerce, business to consumer e-commerce, is going to be via air cargo. Only 20% will be through air cargo or rail and road. I mean, ship, rail and road. Okay, so consumer behavior has changed. As mentioned, the worldwide e-commerce will reach about $5 trillion in 2021. It's another indication that e-commerce is here to stay. Well, IATA also reports that the consumer demand for lithium batteries is growing by 22% annually. So that's an interesting figure, 22% annually. If you notice, most of your devices have these lithium batteries, and the lithium batteries have a longer duration now. So there is a demand globally for lithium batteries, and the air cargo industry will definitely benefit from that. Then the vaccine distribution. The aviation industry will have a big role to play in the distribution of vaccines. The numbers are mentioned here. So we will need aviation to support, to vaccinate a greater number of citizens of the world. So again, aviation has to survive. A few other things that definitely will show a lot of trends in the coming years to grow by 63.6 billion up by 2025. As you know, drones are used in many areas for humanitarian services, like in Rwanda, where the blood is transferred from one village to another, then useful drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, in the construction industry, when earthquakes happen, in the chemical fertilizer industry, in photography, you name it, they are there. So drones are definitely going to make a big impact in the next couple of years. Also, the commercial space tourism, which I mentioned previously, is set to grow by about $8 billion by 2030. So that's interesting. So space travel, definitely, because if you think about the main players, Jeff Bezos, his Blue Origin company, and Virgin Galactica by Richard Branson, and Elon Musk's SpaceX, they're all trying to harness the benefits of this industry. Definitely, the aviation industry has used big data analytics. Many airlines use it because airlines collect a lot of data, personal data, a lot of information, segments, and all that. They have specified data centers, so they need to extract this data and analyze this and make decisions. Also, artificial intelligence is used currently, and also will be used. So the aviation industry always has been at the cusp of cutting edge technology, always using touch. So what are the challenges? We will challenge is the green. You okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Yeah, so the challenges in the next 5 to 10 years would be the greening of aviation, carbon offsetting, where airlines will have to offset the carbon emissions. It's going to be compulsory for states from 2027. Another challenge will be the cybersecurity, because we'll be collecting a lot of information and a lot of systems will be running. And the security of these systems will be very crucial, because almost everything will be on systems, and a lot of technology used. So cyber security will be very crucial for the aviation industry. Another challenge is data protection and privacy, because we collect a lot of data, tons of data. It has to be protected because data is so important, and personal data must not be shared in an unauthorized manner. So I will end with this little quotation that Bill Gates of Microsoft said some time ago. The Wright brothers created the single greatest cultural force since the invention of writing. The airplane became the first World Wide Web, bringing people, languages, ideas, and values together. Bill Gates from Microsoft. Thank you, Azri. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. And we've got some questions to follow up with. Sir, as we discussed, in the post-pandemic world, from your perspective, do you believe airlines will look to sell goods and services directly, or is a third party can be happy with some kind of commission revenue share? Do you think airports can do post-COVID-19 to overcome the drop in passenger travel number and to make up for the loss in both aero and non-aero revenues?
Sorry, Azri, can you repeat that question?
Sure, sir. What do you think airports can do post-COVID-19 to overcome
they don't have access to, for example, web booking or directly using an app. Not everyone is confident and conversant. So they will need the support of these third-party players like the GDSs. And also the GDSs, I'm sure, will innovate themselves and offer competitive products. If you look at it, really, it's going to be expensive for airlines also to keep updating their IT infrastructure. It's not easy. It's costly. But the GDSs, they are specialized on it and they are on the job. They're always coming up with new products. So I believe it'll be a mix of both.
And also, like, what kind of business models and strategies would you suggest in order to give hopes of a rebound in the industry of aviation, especially to airlines, retail stakeholders, and also beginners who are eager to explore the world of aviation, especially in the post-pandemic world?
What do you mean by beginners? The students, is it?
Students, and also, students who are eager to explore the world of aviation after the pandemic world, and starters who are eager to start up in aviation.
Yeah, the aviation industry, but most specialists or experts, what they say is that it'll around 2024, it'll come back to normal. 2024 latest. 2023 maybe, if the vaccination program is rapidly done across the world, then we can go to the normalcy faster. Also, another thing, the global standards, there is no global standard on vaccination, acceptance of vaccinations, border openings. There is no global standard at the moment. So most states will say, okay, I open my border. I don't open my border. So there is no global acceptance and understanding at the moment. Of course, the states can decide because it's their sovereignty. They are sovereign, so they can decide what they do with their country. But unless all states, remember I told you about the hub and spoke system. If more states open up, only the hub and spoke system will work well. If the hub and spoke system works, only the network carriers can be very efficient. If they're efficient, they can be profitable, and then they can add a lot to the economy. So it's a connected thing. It's one leads to another. So my advice is just hanging there in the industry. Also, this is a good opportunity to do training, to enhance your knowledge, to read a lot about the industry, because the industry is quite vast and there's a lot of things happening around the world. It's a good opportunity for you to read, understand what's happening, speak to people, attend webinars. There are a lot of webinars happening, too many webinars actually. You can't keep up. So that's my advice. For the airlines, the business model, best thing is to save cash. Don't lose money. Try and preserve cash. Cash is king. The more cash you have for the long term, you're going to be able to survive. So that's my take on it.
Thank you so much, sir, for the explanation. I personally learned a lot and hope the same with the audience too. Now, I cordially invite Dr. Sumit De Silva to address the audience.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much for the introduction. And it's a pleasure to be part of this very fruitful discussion. And then I'm so happy to be with Mr. Rehan Wanyappa, my dear colleague. And then thank you very much again for IAS for organizing this event to enhance and educate our younger generation on aviation. And to begin with, because we are representing airport and aviation, that is our Sri Lanka's airport operator. And so to talk about our company, basically we are the service provider for the aviation industry. And then we are running 5.
Sumit got unmuted. Muted at least.
Sumit sir, you have been muted actually. Your mic is muted.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So we are the airport operator, and then we are running 5 major international airports that you know. Basically, we have the BIA, Bandaranaike International Airport, and then we have the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport, and Jaffna, and then Batticaloa, and so we have 5 major, and also we should talk about our first international airport, Ratmalana. And so in terms of aviation, I think Mr. Rehan very clearly explained about the current situation of the industry. And to take you forward in this discussion, I would like to just highlight some few areas about our industry. And then actually the industry, the air transport sector, so they makes a major contribution to our economy. So according to IATA, I think Mr. Rehan also mentioned this figure, around 700,000 jobs are supported by the air transport and tourism industry in Sri Lanka. So I am talking about the situation existed before the COVID-19 global pandemic. So it is very important to know how important the industry is for our country. So now you can think of at the same time what has happened to this job as well. So over 700,000 jobs directly and indirectly were supported by us. And if you look at the GDP contribution, actually it was around 8.9% of the country's GDP that we supported by the air transport sector and from the foreign tourists arriving in the country by air. So that is significant amount that we had in the economy. And if you look at, in our case, if you look at our BIA, the main gateway, and if you look at the tourist destinations, so before the COVID-19 pandemic, look at the countries that where we got the top, highest tourists coming from. India ranked first, and then we can see China there, UK, Germany, and France. And at the same time, you can study what has happened to these countries. What has happened in India because of COVID situation. China, UK, Germany, France, top 5. And if you look at the 5 busiest direct flights arriving from destination like countries, it was again India, and then UAE, Qatar, Maldives, and Malaysia. Right? Again, if you look at these countries, Malaysia is still in a lockdown, for example. And if you look at the cargo, busiest cargo routes, you can see UAE, Qatar, Maldives, India, and Hong Kong. So these were the key markets for us in terms of passengers and cargo. Right? And then actually before the COVID-19 pandemic, basically, right? And actually it was expecting, IATA for example, they were predicting aviation transport sector, air transport sector to grow in the next 20 years. Right? And then that is why we have to reassess that. Where are we now? And there are predictions done by different organizations like IATA and ICAO. And these organizations are telling, for example, we'll come back to 2019 figures in 2024 actually, sorry. We'll come back to 2019 figures in 24, in 5 years' time. And Mr. Jan also talked about this diagram, how it was before the global view. For example, now in 2019, 4.5 billion people travel worldwide. And it dramatically came down last year. Right. And so according to ICAO, according to the International Civil Aviation Organization, so if you look at the 2020, figures, when we compare with the 2019 figures, there's an overall reduction of 50% seats offered by airlines in the industry. And passenger-wise, it is 60% minus decline, a decline growth. And it's a loss of 371 billion US dollars for the airlines. So I don't want to explain more about the damage or the impact it has, the COVID-19 has brought to us. And so global impact, if you look at as a summary, the air passenger traffic and overall reduction of air passengers, both international and domestic, it is ranging from 60% in 2020 compared to 2019. It was like that. And airports from our sector, an estimated loss of approximately 65% passenger traffic. And airline-wise, 66% decline of their revenue, passenger per kilometer, right? So likewise, you can see the GDP in the world, for example, the global economy, in between minus 3.3 to minus 4.3% of the world GDP contraction that we experienced in 2020. So that is according to the IMF and World Bank. So we are living in a period like that. We were affected and still being affected. And we are living in a very volatile, uncertain world. And amidst these challenges, actually, that you know in Sri Lankan context, so we reopened the airports in January 2021, this year. Last year, we had to close the airport for international passenger arrivals, but we continued to support the cargo and then other passenger and repatriation flight movements. And again, we had a restriction on inbound commercial flights from 21st May to 31st of May in 2021. And again, we have relaxed the restrictions for inbound passengers from 1st of June 2021. And then if you look at the airport statistics of all airports in 2020 in our company, so in 2020 we handled 2.3 million passenger movements. But if you compare this number with 2019 statistics, it was 9.96, almost 10 million passengers we handled in our or through our airports in the country. And the aircraft movements, last year we had 38,000 aircraft movements. And if you want to look at how many aircraft that we handled in 2019, it was 62,000 aircraft movements. So it has come down from 62,000 to 38,000 aircraft movements. So cargo movements, 151,000 metric ton. And in 2019, for example, it was 260,000 cargo movements, metric ton, I mean. So then you can look at the impact. And this year, so bio bubble concept we launched with the Sri Lanka tourism, and still it's been carried out. And so under the bio bubble program from 21st January to June 28th this year, we have been able to handle more than 11,000 tourists. And for example, now if you look at the airport operations, normally before the COVID-19 global pandemic, we were having around 160 to 180, 90 aircraft movements a day at BIA. And our overflying, our flight information region is 27 times the size of our land, and all the aircraft moving or flying above our sky, the number was around 140 to 160 aircraft using our airspace. Now what has happened? Daily aircraft movement has come down to like arrival 25, departure 22. Altogether, it is almost like 50. And passenger movements, Arrival, we are getting around 1,000 passengers, and departure movements around 500 to 800, or sometimes it can vary up to 1,000. Altogether, it can be not 2,500 passenger movements a day. But before the COVID-19 situation, it was 28,000 passenger movements a day. Our BIA, the main gateway, was handling 28,000 passenger movements a day. You can see, for example, the dramatic impact it has brought on us in the aviation sector. So, however, amidst these challenges that we faced as the airport operator, and so we continue to operate and continue our major development projects. For example, actually our airport was congested before the COVID-19 situation. Our BIA airport was congested because of the heavy traffic we had and the limited capacity we had at the airport terminal. Because our airport was actually built up to handle only 6 million passengers per annum. And actually we were handling almost double the number, 10 to 11 million passengers we handle, just having the capacity of having to handle 6 million passengers. So therefore, developing another terminal was a challenge for us, and it was continually dragged. And then recently last year, we restarted the construction of the new terminal, and that is, you can see the future in our aviation industry. So you are getting a new terminal. So if we have students here who are enthusiastic to learn about the future aviation, even though we are just passing through a challenging time. So we can say, for example, the future in 3 years' time, you'll be having a new modern state-art of the terminal at BIA. So this terminal will be able to handle another 9 million passengers per annum, which will add together to the existing 6 million, altogether 15 million passengers per annum that we will be able to handle. So you can see these images of the future terminal that you are going to use when you are using our airport. So it is totally high-tech and then driven towards the customer convenience and comfort. And in this, if you look at, for example, the facilities that we are getting, the floor area, for example, now altogether it will like increase up to 275,000 square meters. That means we'll be adding another 185,000 square meters in the new terminal. 185,000 square meters. And the check-in counters, there'll be 96 check-in counters coming in the new terminal. Now existing, for example, we are having only 53 check-in counters. Then you can see the increase. Altogether, there will be 149 check-in counters. That is significant growth. And departure passport control counters, for example, now we are having 21 counters. In the new terminal, there will be 32 new counters. And for example, bus gates and the contact gates, for example, will increase up to 24. And then the other facilities such as launches, so we'll be having new airline launches, 6 launches will be added, and arrival passport control. So there was a huge complaint on the arrival passport, and there'll be 56 added passport control counters at the arrival immigration area. And at the same time, there'll be new apron. Almost apron is now 90% done. 90% or no, more than 90% is now completed. So this apron will facilitate to have another parking or more parking space for airlines to park. There'll be 23 parking slots available for airlines. So that means we can easily park 23. So in this area that you can see here, these are the current development project going on. You can see 90% work done in the apron area, where you can have more than 23 aircraft conveniently park in this on this apron area. So this is the current situation if you just pass through our BIA, you can see the development happening with the BIA Terminal 2 project. So this is exactly where the BIA Terminal 2 being constructed. So new terminal. The recent pictures I have taken. So in addition to that, actually we have strengthened last year the security screening facilities here, spending billions of money, and then public concourse area at the departure area. Unfortunately, Sri Lankan passengers still couldn't experience that area because we had the COVID pandemic experience. Otherwise, so we have expanded our departure public concourse area and giving very environmental friendly travel experience for the departing passengers. And actually, you know that, for example, PCR testing and all, we had to require when the passengers wanted to come in the country, and then Airport and Aviation to the leadership and then establish one PCR laboratory. It was the laboratory where we had the maximum number of tests completed in the country. So we completed more than 100,000 tests within first 5 months. So that is how we have contributed to the industry. And at the same time, we are expanding the cargo facilities, the import and export cargo terminals. The capacities are expanded. One import cargo terminal being constructed now, and it will add more facilities and add more space for to support the industry as well. And recently, now the major important thing is that basically the airports, we have to ensure the passenger safety and their hygiene, and we have to ensure a safe travel for the passengers. To give the best assurance, actually, we have been accredited by the Airport Council International, ACI, recently. Earlier this year, Bandaranaike International Airport was accredited by ACI, and at the same time, very recently, 2 weeks back, Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport also got the same accreditation, and then we can assure that passenger is safe in our airport and they are having a safe travel experience, and we are giving it at maximum hygiene to the passenger. So this is actually the current situation in our industry, in our company, and what we are doing to the industry. That is what I can share from my end to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we've got some questions to it. What do you think the airlines should support during recovery stage? And from your perspective, how can airlines generate revenue after the crisis situation? And what roles do airports, marketing, omnichannel, and digitalization in general play in the equation, sir?
Yeah, it's a good question, because now, and also as Mr. Rehan also shared many very valid points and then new insights. Actually, if you look at the loss of the airlines in the last year because of the pandemic, now when I referred and researched some articles, I found that it's around 328 billion US dollars. That is the amount of loss that airlines incurred or have incurred because of the COVID-19 situation. And it was around actually 40% of the previous year's normal revenues. And then, so as I told you earlier, that the industry will take another 4 or 5 years to recover and then come back to 2019 situation. So therefore, I think airlines' point of view, and airlines, if they are talking about airlines and the marketing perspective, and the key drivers for the recovery would be, in my view, the public health environment. We are getting the vaccine now in almost all the countries. The health environment will be a key factor. But the problem here is now in the short run, it is a negative factor in the short run. But in the medium run and the long run, the health sector development, the health environment in almost all countries, travel destinations will be a key factor. And then, so the airline's ability to meet the safety protocols and ensure a safe travel, that will be another key factor. And another key factor is that I can share with you is the passengers' reluctance to buy or to travel rather. For example, even I am nowadays doing a research on the passengers, or in Sri Lankan context, the travel outbound travelers' travel intention. So therefore, in my research, I can share with you up to now. In my research, what I have found. So if I take like the question, like for example, I will make an effort to travel abroad after the epidemic. That means the people willingness to travel after the epidemic. So more than 50% will say yes, they will travel after the epidemic. So because they don't want to travel during the epidemic or the pandemic situation. So that is a very, very significant factor where we have to consider. So that is why we have to build the confidence first. Confidence building will be a key factor in my view. And airlines will focus mainly in the short run on the leisure travel. So industry experts, industry analysts, they have found that they tell, or that is discussed in many forums I have heard, leisure travel. So business travel will not recover very soon in the short run, but leisure travel will come up. And so then again, airlines will have a low visibility in the journey, I think, in the head. And therefore, I think in marketing perspective, airlines and airports will have to work together, because earlier, so than before, we have to come together. Let's say, for example, domestic aviation. Now, we have 3 major airports which really serve the domestic aviation requirements. For example, Colombo International Airport, Ratmalana, Jaffna International Airport, and Batticaloa. And these airports, so we have to utilize them. And then we have to think of how can we get the domestic aviation going. So then in that case, airports also have to contribute to the airlines business, and together joint marketing efforts. Now we are trying out different joint marketing efforts to boost the industry. I mean the local domestic aviation industry. And then different approaches, like, as Mr. Shan also mentioned about the omni-channel digitalization of the services. So they play a significant role now. And so pointless experience, seamless experience for the passengers through their different channels and digital platforms that will really helpful for the aviation industry. And then excuse me. So in that case, passengers, I think I would look at this way. So we have to airlines together and airports, we have to rethink the fundamental business strategies. And earlier we thought of different approaches, like airports doing different marketing campaigns and airlines doing different marketing campaigns. And then we have to think of how can we together, how can join hands together and do the marketing programs. And then and think of different business models and diversification of the airport operations, for example, and diversifying our business models. That will be a key factor for us as well, for our recovery as well. And so these and digital transformation will be a key factor for us. So these things, I think that airlines and airports together have to consider.
Thank you so much, dear sir, for the explanation and a fruitful discussion. I would like to take this opportunity to thank both of our guest speakers for giving a clear insight on various marketing, business concepts, models, and strategies, and a clear message of hope of a promising rebound in the aviation industry and how it can be done methodically. So I hope many of you present here today learned something beneficial, especially to the youth who are eager to kickstart their career in the aviation industry. So we know many of us who are in the industry fear for the future of it. And some who are very new or at the early stages of exploring the world of aviation have little or no clue basically on what's going on with the current situation. Hope that particular confusion and doubts and many other doubts were optimistically cleared during this session. I would like to take this tremendous opportunity to thank our valued guest speakers for contributing their valued time and all participants for attending this event amidst the busy schedule towards making this event an absolute success. And special thanks to our sponsors, Kuwait Airways and Traveler Global, and all of our business partners. So now I would like to cordially invite my colleague, Abhirami Krishna Kumar, to address the audience. Abhirami, here you go.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ms. Abhirami Krishnakumar from Jaffna. I worked as an Alliance Air representative in Jaffna International Airport. I am working as an Associate Business Development Manager in Meadowball, Lanka. I am the coordinator for the International Airline and Aviation College for Aviation Studies and British College of Management for Business Administration, Human Resource Management and Marketing under the certification of London ABE in the Northern Province. At the same time, I engage in business also. I have done International Diploma in Ground Operations and International Diploma in Ticketing Reservations and Marketing in International Airline and Aviation College. I've been doing an ABE Level 6 Diploma in Business Management in British College of Management, which collaborates with International Airline and Aviation College for ABE programs. On my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for gracing your important work and sharing us with your knowledge and findings today. I would like to express my sincere thanks to our guest speakers, Mr. Rian Venniappa, Director Air Transport and Economic Regulations, Civil Aviation Authority of Sri Lanka, and Dr. Sumit De Silva, Head of Marketing and Telecommunications, Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka Private Limited, for enlightening us with their knowledge. It gave deep insights into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts. The points where Mr. Rian Venniappa and Dr. Sumit De Silva told us about the future trends of the aviation industry were really informative. I'm pretty sure the knowledge that Mr. Rian Venniappa and Dr. Sumit De Silva gave us will definitely help us in our future. Once again, I would like to thank Mr. Rian Venniappa and Dr. Sumit De Silva for taking out time from their busy schedule and enlightening us with the knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. I also wish to express my gratitude to IAAC management for giving permission to organizing this webinar session. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Mr. Aslam Shafi, Manager Admin of International Airline and Aviation College, for the support and guidance. I also extend my sincere thanks to the IAAC Aero Club Committee for their enormous cooperation to make this event successful. Finally, I would like to thank all of you who present here for paying your attention and learning. I hope that today you get a wide knowledge and clear views in the aviation industry and future trends. Thank you once again, and I wish you all a bright future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Abhirami. So we have almost come to an end of our session. So before we wind up, I would like to entertain a few questions put forward by the audience towards our respective guest speakers. So any questions are always welcome. So as we saw, some of the questions are in common, so I'll be picking some questions in common. So many of us, many of the audience here have questioned about the job opportunities in the future. So dear guest speakers, I would like to question you all on how do you see the job market in the future and in Sri Lanka especially? What kind of job opportunities would be there, and in the future, how would the industry rebound from your point of view, sir?
Azri, I think the job opportunities will definitely come back because the industry is going to rebound. Definitely, there's no question about it. It's definitely going to rebound. I mentioned 2024, but if the vaccination program is underway, it will recover faster, maybe 2022, end of 2022 as well. So the jobs definitely, because there is a demand for aviation. Most of the airlines that let go of their staff, they have, I believe they have told them that once the industry recovers, they can rejoin. So similarly, there will be job opportunities. Previously, before COVID, I remember ICAO publishing some huge graphs which says that they need so many, example, pilots, air traffic controllers, many other service categories as well, employment categories as well, where for the industry to sustain, you need all these people to join the industry. I can remember one important fact they mentioned. They mentioned that if the industry is to sustain properly, they will need ladies also to join, women to join the industry, because that is the only way that they can fulfill all these job opportunities in the next. They made their forecast for about 20 years, from let's say 2020, sorry, from 2013 or 14 to up to about 2030, 33 or 34. So in that, they mentioned the amount of people they need for the industry. So once the industry recovers, we will be back to where we were. So we need all these people to join our industry to help the industry to survive and thrive in the future.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, Rehan sir, for the reaction about that. So we're hopefully coming to the end of our session. So I would like to cordially invite Mr. Aslam Shafi to wind up the session with a small note. Mr. Aslam, it's your chance.
Thank you so much, Azri. Once again, from my heartfelt thanks to Mr. Rehan Wanyappa and Dr. Sumit, especially on a weekday in a tight schedule, spending that valuable time with us. And also to all our participants, I hope you all got a better idea about the aviation and about the future of aviation. And thanks to our Aero Club team from Azri and all the team members for organizing this one. And hopefully we will conduct another program in the coming future on another sector, or especially like a cargo or some sector. I wish to see you all again. Thank you so much for participating. Once again, we'll see you on another day. Thank you, Mr. Rehan. Thank you.
Thank you, Aslam. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Azri.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Aslam. Thank you, Asri. Thank you, Mr. Rehan.
Thank you, Rehan.
Thank you, Sumit. Bye.
Thank you very much, Rehan and Dr. Sumit. Thank you very much. Thanks, Aslam, for organizing this program. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Rehan.